The next mountain that we will deal with is the mountain of business and economics. This is an interesting mountain because it affects every other mountain as well as culture and society as a whole. Nothing happens in the culture without this mountain. So what drives the mountain of business and economics? America operates based upon a capitalistic system. But what is capitalism? Capitalism, an economic system in which investment in and ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of wealth is made and maintained chiefly by private individuals or corporations, especially as contrasted to cooperatively or state-owned means of wealth. So the mountain of business and economics operates on an economic system where ownership, risk, and investment are rewarded. This ability to take a risk, work hard, and create a profit has driven this nation to incredible levels of prosperity, created many businesses, and a multitude of millionaires. Capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty and been the driving force behind more charitable contributions than any other system of economics. Now, while capitalism has many virtues, it is certainly not perfect. One of its biggest attractions is that it promotes greed. This is certainly true, as there are examples of people who have done horrific things after being motivated by greed. Another problem with capitalism is the tendency for certain businesses to become too big and become a monopoly, which crushes the competition and becomes a detriment to society. Now, most people who despise capitalism promote an alternative economic system called socialism. Socialism, a theory or system of social organization that advocates the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution, capital, land, etc., by the community as a whole, usually through a centralized government. In Marxist theory, it is the stage following capitalism in the transition of a society to communism, characterized by the imperfect implementation of collectivist principles. Perhaps the greatest perceived virtue of socialism is that it guarantees equality of outcome. Socialism sees the disparity between the rich and the poor and seeks to even the playing field by means of wealth redistribution. So in other words, let's say that you work very hard to build a successful business. You take risk using your money or capital to start a business. You work long hours, create a product, bring it to market, and sell it. But on the other hand, I don't have a job at all. I'm content with laying in the bed, sleeping in, and playing video games. But because socialism guarantees equality of outcome, the government takes a large amount of your profits through the form of taxes and creates programs that allows people like me to do nothing and live off the hard work of others. How would you feel as a business owner who risked everything, worked hard, only to have your profits taken from you and given to others? You would feel like, what's the point? What's the point in working hard if the government is just going to take it all and give it to somebody else? In this system, there is no incentive to work hard or succeed. Socialism has destroyed every nation that committed to it. Case in point, consider the nation of Venezuela. Had you told the average Venezuelan 60 years ago that their nation would become one of the most unstable and poverty-stricken nations in the entire world, they would have laughed at you. Why? Venezuela is one of the wealthiest nations in South America because of its massive oil reserves, the largest in the world at 18.2%. But because of poor leadership during the oil embargo, Venezuela's economy tanked, which led to enormous debt and hyperinflation. This set the stage for Hugo Chavez, who introduced socialism, which seemed like a great idea at the time, but which eventually devolved into a totalitarian state where a small ruling class made out like fat cats. The middle class was virtually wiped out, and the masses found themselves in poverty. Today, 87% of the population can't afford to buy food in this socialist utopia. The people live in a strict rationing system that only allows 2 days per week to shop and produces stores with long lines and empty shelves. So, while capitalism certainly is not perfect, it is a much better alternative than socialism. With capitalism, anyone willing to work hard has an opportunity. Capitalism guarantees equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, and conforms to the biblical standard which says, if anyone will not work, neither let him eat. Most young people who have been indoctrinated by the educational system in America believe that the redistribution of wealth is a morally superior system to capitalism. But actually, socialism is based upon stealing because it forcibly takes something that you worked for and gives it to those who have not worked for it at all, thereby creating equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity. Additionally, socialism puts crooked politicians in charge of the nation's wealth. But you can never trust the government with money and power. In fact, the reason why we live in a constitutional republic here in America is because the founders did not trust government. They understood that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So they severely limited the federal government and put the power in the hands of the states and the people. Now, while capitalism has its virtues, it also has its faults. Because of the sin nature, no system on earth will ever be perfect. Capitalism can therefore be exploited and used to promote greed. It can also be a system that has little regard for the poor. So certain levels of socialism can be tolerated to create programs that give people a hand up and not a hand out. Capitalism can also birth billionaire masters of industry that operate virtual monopolies that squash the competition. In this case, government must protect society by breaking up these monopolies and preventing them from hurting the marketplace. Now, it's from this mountain that Satan tempts all people with the lust of the eyes and the pride of life. Through lust and greed, he has caused our society to be more materialistic than any preceding generation. Satan has used this mountain to fuel the love of money, which is the root of everything evil in the culture.